We are going to get started. Good morning from Alaska. We welcome all of you to ANA's webinar on Unity Youth Leaders. And if you sign up for this webinar, you are in the right place. We know there's a lot of things happening across the country with some of our TTA centers. Some of them are doing their PPD trainings, and there's also a couple of other meetings that are happening. So we appreciate your participation in this webinar. This webinar is made possible by the Administration for Native Americans. We want to provide a brief overview of ANA and its partners before we get started. ANA strives to promote self-sufficiency for Native Americans by providing discretionary grant funding for community-based projects, including training and technical assistance to eligible tribes and Native organizations. There are 5 grant programs under ANA available to Native communities. ANA's vision is that Native communities are thriving. There are 4 regional centers that work with ANA to provide support through trainings and technical assistance to eligible tribes, tribal organizations, and Native communities. Here are the 4 regional centers that support ANA. The Pacific region serves Hawaii and the 4 U.S. territories in the Pacific Islands. The Western region serves states from the Pacific coast up to the states of Montana and down to New Mexico. Eastern region covers the states from the Dakotas down to Texas, then to the Atlantic coast. Alaska region serves the entire 49th and largest state in the Union. Additionally, Sister Sky is another resource for ANA. They support our native language programs. As stated, ANA's regional TTA centers offer free trainings, technical assistance webinars like this one, as well as useful tools and guides to assist in the preparation for applications to ANA and supporting projects once they are funded. Today's webinar is hosted by the Alaska Region TTA Center. My name is Larry Guerrero. I am Yupik and an enrolled tribal member from the village of Fornik. I am the Technical Assistance Manager for the Alaska Region TTA Center. We have invited 2 Native youth leaders. They will share their thoughts and experience in participating in local, state, and national youth opportunities. If you have questions or comments during today's webinar, please use the chat option to write your questions or feedback. We will read them and will respond to them at the end of today's session. We are very fortunate to have 2 young leaders from the United National Indian Tribal Youth to share their insight on youth engagement. Shinoa Shipio, I hope I am not butchering your last name, and you can correct me when you start your presentation, is an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation and is also affiliated with the Pueblo of Santa Clara. She recently graduated from the University of New Mexico with degrees in population health and Native American studies. She currently serves as the female co-president of National Unity Council Executive Committee. Genoa is a member of the New Mexico Indigenous Youth Council, housed in the New Mexico State Indian Affairs Department. In this position, she hopes to be an advocate for her community at the state level. Genoa is planning new mental behavioral health programming with a focus on traditional teachings, storytelling, songs, dances, and art as stress relief rather than substance and alcohol use. She has also recently accepted an invitation to join the newest cohort of Americans for Indian Opportunities, or AIO, Ambassador Program, which is an Indigenous values-based community capacity building Leadership Development Initiative. Shinoa's involvement with Unity, New Mexico Indigenous Youth Council, and AIO will continue to develop her skills as a community organizer, and most importantly, as a voice for youth who have not found theirs yet. Jonathan Arakawa is an enrolled member of the Lower Elwha Kalam tribe. Mr. Arakawa is the Secretary and Northwest Regional Representative to the National Unity Council Executive Committee. Outside of Unity, Mr. Arakawa also serves as co-vice president of the National Congress of American Indians Youth Commission. While being a student at the Evergreen State College and Peninsula College, studying for both his Bachelor's of Arts in Tribal Governance and Master's in Teaching. He is also a Kawalam language teacher and serves as a minister for the Lower Elwha 1910 Indian Shaker Church. Since birth, Mr. Arakawa's family has instilled leadership qualities, cultural values, and traditional teachings into Mr. Arakawa. We welcome Shinoa and Jonathan, and I will turn the webinar over to you.
Okay, awesome. And so I'll be sharing the slides. Jonathan, if you want to keep an eye on the chat. So we are from the National Unity Council. My name is Shinoa Scipio, and I currently serve as the female co-president, and my co-presenter is Jonathan, and he serves as our secretary and Northwest region representative. Okay. Yate Kato Shidina Asha Ashino Scipio Yanishia bit Ahni Nashland and Nakai Fujini Bashish Chin, a she had Ashi Chado Nakai Fujini Dashinale, Nashiri do Kapo Wenge where the Nasha. I'll go take away the net at Sunny Nashla. So my name is Shinoa Scipio, and I come from the Folded Arms people born for the Salt people. And I'm Navajo and Santa Clara Pueblo. Both are located here in New Mexico, and they're on the map there on the right-hand side. I currently live in Albuquerque, and I had just graduated from the University of New Mexico with degrees in population health and Native American studies. And then just above there, because I come from two different tribes here in New Mexico with two different languages, I have two different Indian names. So my first one is the Bent Teke, and that means like the girl from the Black Mountain. And my second name is Bokumbobi, or Snowflower. And these are just some pictures down at the bottom of my reservations, and then pictures of me on the side since you can't see me right now.
Ay squachi siap nishchaicha alaikum since na at kunus I am cha akla manku I jeans akla tia chiauk et. Good afternoon, friends and relatives. Excuse the background noise. A lot of things going on here at the office. My name is Jonathan Arakawa. My given name is Eliakim. I'm Klalam from Elwha here in the state of Washington. I'm honored to serve as Secretary and Northwest Regional Representative to the National Unity Council Executive Committee. I'm currently at the Evergreen State College studying for my Bachelor's of Arts degree in Tribal Governance. And I'm honored to be here with our Madam female co-president presenting here today. Nixon, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. So Unity is, first of all, stands for the United National Indian Tribal Youth. It is a national network made up of youth councils that promotes not only the personal development, citizenship, and leadership, but also the 4 pillars of well-being, which is kind of intertwined in whatever we do. And plays a very special role, I guess, in our leadership cohorts, which we'll get into later on in the presentation. Jonathan, do you want to kind of go over the history of Unity?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. On April 16th, 1979, under the leadership of the late J.R. Cook from Cherokee, the United National Indian Tribal Youth Incorporated was born. In 1978, J.R. joined forces to kick off the first of many national conferences. JR felt so strongly about unity that he took no salary for 7 years, but worked in other part-time jobs to survive. In 1980, famed country and Western star Willie Nelson hosted a fundraising concert for Unity, which raised $45,000 for the organization to support its youth programs. In 1980, JR established the first youth cohort of leaders called the Council of Eagles. Under his leadership, JR pushed for tribal groups to create youth councils, with the first tribal youth council being created in 1985 on the Wild River Reservation in Wyoming. The National Unity Council and its first elected executive committee were established in 1992 in St. Paul, Minnesota. In the 1990s, JR also created the Earth Ambassadors program and coached the Unity men's basketball team, which won many NIAA championships and teamed up with Atlanta Hawks to conduct basketball clinics around the country. Also under his leadership, Unity Native Youth participated in Senate hearings in 1985, 1996, and 2002 to testify about substance abuse and other issues affecting Indian country. JR retired in 2013.
Thank you, Jonathan. So yeah, it's kind of a brief history as to how like Unity started and kind of some of the names that we still have today. So Unity's mission is to foster the spiritual, mental, physical, and social development of American Indian Alaska Native youth. And these were the 4 pillars that I kind of mentioned earlier, which is depicted in the Unity logo. And these are just a couple of pictures from our last national conference. And so if you have never been to a Unity conference, it is very overwhelming in probably the best possible way, as far as feeling at home, feeling like you have a place to belong and you matter pretty much. And so it's very focused, like I said, on youth, the youth leadership component, I guess, of the development portion. So yes, Jonathan, did you want to add anything, I guess, as far as the mission?
Yes, so Unity's mission is obviously to really empower Native American youth across Indian country and to really build the next generation of leaders in Indian country and for the United States, to really provide those resources and those avenues for all Native youth, and especially for our over 300 youth councils that are affiliated with Unity and those that aren't affiliated. So that's also Unity's mission, and is a daily commitment and a daily charge that we make every day that we wake up, is to make sure that our Native youth are served and to make sure that their future is prosperous. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Oh, I also wanted to mention, if anyone has any questions as we're going through this, can definitely drop them in the chat. So at the heart of Unity is the youth councils, like I mentioned previously. And so Unity's youth council network is made up, I believe Jonathan said this earlier, but over 300 youth councils in 36 states. And youth councils can be within a specific tribe. They can be in a school, in a college. Oh my gosh, the camera's working. In a college, at different urban centers like the Phoenix, I forget what it's called, Phoenix Indian Community Center, something like that. And so really what the main goal is, right, is to help these youth councils kind of develop their own projects within their communities. And so maybe we'll get into the structure of like the conference style later, but pretty much at the national conferences, we come together to talk about the top issues in each of our regions. And we'll get into how the regions are structured too in a different slide. But pretty much coming together, talking about these issues, and then learning from our representatives how we can work through the youth can curriculum to kind of address these issues in different communities. So yes, it's a little bit about youth councils. So next we have just the overall unity, the different unity programs. And we'll talk about some of them, but not all of them. So I did want to mention the Wellness Warriors, which I believe started out as like the physical wellness type of program. Like I said, the 4 pillars kind of, they're interwoven into each of the programs, but some of them more heavily than others. And so now I believe the Wellness Warriors is kind of taking a shift into a different type of wellness. But then we also have the Unity Fire, Unity News, and Unity Drum, which are programs that are not mentioned in this presentation, but they definitely do play a big role in our national and mid-year conferences. So Jonathan, do you want to talk about National Unity Council?
Yes, the National Unity Council, also known as the NUC, is comprised of male and female representatives from each of the affiliated youth councils, as well as affiliated individuals. The NUC is the central collective voice of unity, where Native youth have the opportunity to take a stance on issues affecting Indian country. Presiding over the National Unity Council is the National Unity Council Executive Committee, which is comprised of 10 regional representatives and chaired by the female and male co-presidents.
Thank you. So earlier I was talking about the regions and how they kind of work within the conference and then the National Unity Council. So these are our 10 regions here, kind of color coded as far as states. And last year I served as a Southwest region rep because I come from the state of New Mexico. So I still very much believe that the Southwest region is the best region. And that's a hill I will die on. Okay, so next I wanted to mention the 25 under 25 because we just had a new cohort kind of inducted this past year at our national conference. And so 25 under 25 is like a leadership recognition program that gives credit to 25 amazing youth who are under the age of 25, who are already being problem solvers in their own communities. So whether that's creating their own platforms, creating their own programming, working with different organizations on a particular issue, these youth are already kicking butt. What can I say? I just want to give special shouts out to Kiara Toya. She is one of my good friends. I met her here at UNM. We still do a lot of like community organizing stuff together. So she is really the person that kind of brought me into Unity. And so I will be forever grateful to her for that. Oh, and also Jonathan is a 25 under 25. Did you want to maybe share a little bit of your platform or what made you want to apply to be a 25 under 25?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. It is a very high honor for anyone to receive the 25 under 25 Leadership Recognition Award. And I really want to give kudos and thanks to the Unity office. You know, this 25 under 25 Leadership Recognition Award was established by our executive director, Mary Kim Titla. And under my platform is to ensure that our full and accurate history is taught in the United States and Washington state public school systems to ensure that our voices are heard and that our an unapologetic and unadulterated truth is shared with all students in our public school systems to really create a new generation, a better generation of being better informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Um, so next, I want to talk a little bit about our Earth ambassadors, and these young people. They are, I guess, their platform is more focused on environmental issues, specifically. Well, I think most of them around like climate change and how we can kind of ensure that our indigenous communities, although they are affected, how can we keep them kind of like sustainable in our sustainable ways? Because as Native people, like we used to live that way before colonization, before all of this. And so how, I guess this cohort really takes a look at like the better environmental practices that could be going on in their own communities. So this was our last cohort of ambassadors, the 2021 cohort, and I believe in 2023 we'll have a new class of ambassadors. So if there's any young Native youth in your life who are driven by environmental change, environmental justice, definitely look into applying to be in the next class of Earth ambassadors. So next we have a little bit about our peer guides. Jonathan, if you want to share a little bit about what they do or kind of how they are structured into Unity.
Yes, so the peer guides is also known as the Healing Indigenous Lives Initiative. This project builds on the successes of the past Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, OJJDP, National Intertribal Youth Leadership Efforts, and the Today's Native Leaders Program. The initiative will support and enhance Native youth engagement, coordination, and action related to public safety issues with a focus on juvenile justice and delinquency prevention in Indian country. Unity will be recruiting a diverse group of youth leaders and mentors who will design and facilitate intensive training in critical aspects of juvenile justice and delinquency prevention efforts for cohorts of youth throughout the country. So the peer guides are another great cohort of Unity youth leaders. This was their last, they were for 3 years a cohort, and they were recently honored at the National Unity Conference in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so pretty soon, Unity will be choosing its next cohort of peer guides and really have great initiatives to improve the lives of Native youth all over Indian country.
Right. And I should have put a slide in here, but I didn't, kind of about how our executive committee and our peer guides are now working together through, first of all, our past initiative, or current initiative, I should say, called Restoring the Spirit of Native youth, and our healing circles. So that's kind of how our executive committee and peer guides are working together in this fall, this winter. So we'll be traveling around different parts of the country conducting healing circles, which bring together tribal youth from, the region's tribes. So for example, we're planning one here in Albuquerque, which will bring together the 23 tribes here in New Mexico plus the 2 tribes of Colorado. Bring, some of their youth leaders together to this healing circle, or like leadership summit, to kind of learn how to, like I said, to work through identifying issues, coming up with solutions, and coming up with actionable items and steps, which include talking to community and talking to our tribal leaders and our elders, and how do we go about solving community problems in a meaningful way and through healing, rather than just trying to come at it from a deficit point of view and saying what's wrong and what needs to be added. Rather, like, what do we already have and how can we kind of flip it and make it better? So yeah, I should have just included a slide about it, because honestly, there's a lot going on. And so we just actually wrapped up our second healing circle in Reno. And Jonathan and I were both a part of the first healing circle in Oklahoma City, which we did in kind of combination with the celebration of life for our founder, J.R. Cook, which was honestly we should have just included a slide about that too. But that was honestly just a really good time to reconnect with some of our executive committee and work together through our first ever healing circle. And these healing circles are designed to be 3 days. However, we had like 4 hours to kind of smash everything together. But even through that, I think it was really successful. Do you have any comments about that first healing circle, Jonathan?
Yes, so just to provide context on our initiative, it was titled Restoring the Spirit of Native Youth. And as we are healing and coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was critical to the executive committee and the National Unity Council to have an initiative to help youth councils get back up and running, because we've seen a significant drop in youth councils over the course of the pandemic. One of the solutions we found was having healing circles, talking circles, and it was all the stars aligned with the peer guides and them wanting to submit a resolution for healing circles. And then they realized it was already in our resolution that was being brought forth at our 2022 mid-year conference in Phoenix. So that was a time where we could unify as cohorts, as leadership cohorts, to really work together and engage our other cohorts to really work together and really help restore the spirit of Native youth. And now these healing circles, which in December we're going to be in Tulalip, Washington, in the Northwest region, to really help those youth councils get back up on their feet. So this is the resolution, this initiative in action this year. And it's being, this lead is being taken by our newly elected executive committee that's serving right now. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely should have just included that as a slide. Anyways, so this is kind of the part where I kind of talk about myself a lot. So like I mentioned, I am a recent graduate of the University of New Mexico. But while I was there, these past 4 years, Unity, I think, has really helped me kind of become more comfortable in a leadership type of role. And so, like I said, one of my besties, Kiera, we're there like in the middle picture in the 2 orange shirts. That was our last Orange Shirt Day or the Truth and Reconciliation Day, we kind of, not kind of, we did take over UNM Kiva Club, which played a really big part of my college life and my extracurriculars. And so we became the co-presidents last year. She's currently serving a second term. She's still at the university. And so it was through Unity I learned kind of how impactful larger community style events can be. And so to the left is the last Indigenous Peoples Day at UNM, which we were able to kind of come together and organize like a community event inside of UNM, which I haven't seen since Albuquerque first declared Columbus Day as Indigenous Peoples Day. There hasn't really been any type of like celebration or recognition of that. And so I'm happy to say that this year was our second annual Indigenous Peoples Day celebration at the same place. And so we were able to like engage with Representative Stansbury, who's there in the middle in the red. She took over Deb Holland's seat when Deb moved up to the Secretary of Interior. So we were able to like meet with different kinds of like leadership. And I think like going through Unity and being a part of the executive committee is definitely made me more comfortable talking to, tribal leaders, state leaders, even national leaders. And anyways, because of all of my involvement in stuff outside of school, in school, I received the Outstanding American Indian Student Services Award, I believe it's called, right before I graduated. So that's there, me and my mom, my dad. And then above is just examples of like different presentations that me and Kiara like to do. So we do inclusive language presentations for American Indian Student Services at UNM. We kind of brought them to Unity. And I think during nationals, our first two sessions were very, very popular. And there was a lot of people that attended. So maybe a better presenter, I think. And so, like I mentioned, Kiva Club actually was like a big part of my leadership development combined with Unity. And so to the left are kind of the different things that we were able to do with Kiva Club and the different things that I was able to organize personally. So like I mentioned, Indigenous Peoples Day celebration last year, and then also our different fundraisers that we did throughout the year. So we did one for Valentine's Day. But what I'm most proud of, it's actually like right smack in the middle, is our powwow that we were able to organize. And like I said, like Unity, even though it's only like twice a year, nationals and mid-year, I think the skills that I learned there have definitely carried forward as far as like knowing who's who in like Indian country and like who to hit up for like an MC or a head lady, or, like all these different connections that play a big role in the long run. So Kiara and I were actually able to organize this powwow, which turned out pretty great for two Pueblo girls who don't dance powwow and who have never actually attended a powwow. It was pretty awesome. And then to the right is kind of things that I did over the summer. So I was still working with youth over the summer. However, I was at the University of Michigan working through one of their public health programs. And so I was able to work with the Community Health and Social Services Center in Detroit, Michigan, where I was kind of the co-lead on their La Vida summer program, which was a program. Well, I think I'll get in. I have a slide specifically about it later, but it was a program to kind of address domestic violence in the Southwest Detroit area through these like youth gatherings. So it was pretty awesome that like all of these skills, like I said, that I learned in Unity how to work with like my peers, how to work with people that are younger than me, how to work, all of the ages in between. How those kind of skills have transferred over to like my public health work, which is what my degree is in, which is ultimately what I want to do for my tribe. So it was just cool to see how like all of these things are kind of transpiring. Okay, so this is kind of my end deliverable that I had there at CHAS. So you can read a little bit about it. But ultimately what we were able to do was take this curriculum that they had, like I said, that was focused on domestic violence or interpersonal violence prevention in youth. We took this curriculum and we kind of made it more modern. We made edits to it. So for example, in the middle, one of our points of the curriculum was to be able to identify aspects of healthy self-esteem versus low self-esteem. And so our content for that day, we talked about the difference between confidence and self-esteem, and how we see those in others and how we can model them in ourselves. And then we had like a pretty robust discussion on characters of low self-esteem versus healthy self-esteem. And then we kind of went through, so this is our curriculum, I think, for that day. We kind of talked about how like the different like beauty standards, I guess, in the United States contributes to our feelings of like lower self-esteem. We talked about body positivity versus body neutrality. We talked about self-talk, positive affirmations. And so for that day, we were able to make these paper hearts there. We did like origami. And then on the back side, we had them write 3 affirmations. And we had them kind of like tape it to their wall or tape it to the table or tape it to their journals for like the remainder of the program. And then at the end, I do remember a couple of girls saying, like this was like what did she say? Something about how she always loves to make like the paper hearts now, but she always includes like something nice on the back when she like gives them to somebody. And that wasn't ultimately the goal of me working at CHAS or Levita, but just like it's like the little things, I think, that make me happy to continue working with youth. Yeah, so it was a pretty cool program. Anyways, moving on. So another project that I was on in my last semester at UNM, we were working with the Santa Cruz watershed here in New Mexico. It's actually in Espanola, so like a little bit north of Santa Fe, which is where my pueblo is. And so my community in my pueblo was actually very much affected by the what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a law word. I'm not really sure what the word is right now. But anyways, so the United States, like the government is pretty much saying like, since you're not using all this water in the dam, pretty much, I think they're going to use it for another facility. And if you don't know, Los Alamos Labs is kind of located there in this area, which pollutes a lot of the water that runs through the northern Rio Grande and then ultimately into our acequia systems, which are how we water our fields. And so, like I said, being more comfortable talking to not only leadership, but community members is, I think, one of the biggest skills that I learned in Unity, which kind of showed for itself like in this project that we did. And honestly, I forget the word. It's not litigation. It's a different word. It's like it starts with an A. But anyways, they took our projects, like these posters that we made, and when they have their like litigation, whatever, in Washington, D.C., they are going to be able to like show the people like the water here is important and you can't just come in and like use it however you want to, because we have farms here. Like this is, you know, our way of living and our way of life. And so, yeah, I think this is one of the biggest things that I have done this year, which I'm very proud of, but it's because of, like I said, like because of unity. And so currently, I am a community organizing fellow with Native Organizers Alliance. And we just recently went to DC at the end of September to advocate for House Bills 8108 and 8109, which are the protection of sacred sites and land repatriation. So we were able to talk to some of the staff members of the Congress people who support the bill, and then who also are not in, like, have not co-signed it, but we want them to. So we were able to go there and kind of advocate on a national platform for the protection of sacred sites. And while we were there, actually in DC, we were able to visit the US Fish and Wildlife Services and attend the ceremony for the anniversary of the Red Road to DC, which is a totem pole that was made in Washington state and kind of made its way through the country, stopping at different sacred sites along the way to bring prayers, to bring healing to DC. And so now it's standing up there at the Fish and Wildlife Services, and we had like a nice little program for the totem pole. And so it was like a really awesome experience to be a part of, like to be a part of NOA now, which is a national organization. And then here in the state, I am part of the New Mexico Indigenous Youth Council, excuse me, which is a part of the New Mexico State Indian Affairs Department in Santa Fe. And this was, I believe, honestly, these pictures were taken a day apart. So the day before I was in DC, and I left that night, or I left the next morning to go to this presentation in Santa Fe the next day. Anyways, we went, we were meeting with the Urban Land Institute. Honestly, I don't know the name. We're meeting with some people from some organization that wanted to talk about the land back movement and how it affects the mental health of youth. And because we had just finished our report from our last youth summit, we were able to provide them with this presentation and kind of answer their questions and talk about land use or sustainable land use through the eyes of like the youth, or through the eyes of the community that they serve. So they were from all over the world. So it was more like a global presentation, which was kind of cool. And then they, of course, had a lot of questions for us at the end. But yeah, this is just kind of the two things I do in conjunction with Unity. So all three kind of at the same time. And I believe that is the end of my slides. Okay.
Well, thank you, Madam President, for your tireless work and commitment to Native youth and to all Native people. So because of Unity, it's you might say it's a legacy of leadership for many of us that are involved with Unity, and especially the executive committee. In addition to my duties at Unity, I'm also a vice president for the National Congress of American Indians Youth Commission. And these duties all come together. Nothing is different about those responsibilities. I always said, I aren't marrying these duties because they all align with the same mission and vision in serving Native youth. Additionally, really in advocating for our full and accurate history to be taught is being a part of that work as a teacher, as an educator in our public school system. And so you'll see in these pictures here, The first one is alongside my co-vice president, Yananui Logan, providing an address to tribal leaders, state leaders, and federal leaders at the NCAI 2022 mid-year conference in Anchorage, Alaska, which was in June. Also, this picture here, we're talking with the students, was during the COVID-19 pandemic and providing a place where students could come in person safely to get academic support. Also, along sitting, the top pictures alongside our former female co-president, Audrey Mitchell, and we were signing minutes and then also approving our resolution through our signatures to make it become an initiative for unity. And also this was the picture, this group pictures after our EC orientation and in Minneapolis. So it was really, because of unity, we have a family, we have a community. And that's what's in unity, what is in community is unity. So next slide, please. So currently, once again, serving as co-vice president to the NCAI Youth Commission. Here is during a Youth State of Indian Nations address alongside the State of Indian Nations address with the NCAI president, which is currently President Fawn Sharp. And we also had a congressional response with Congresswoman Sharice Davids, and also heavily involved in education as a language teacher, also a member of our teacher certification board, and recently appointed to the Washington State Native Educators Cultivation Research Advisory Board, but I just wanted to shorten it because it's a long name for our board. And so here is really having consultation and government to government relationships and even our nation to nation relationship, and ensuring that tribal sovereignty is honored and to make sure that tribal consultation and consent is always followed in anything that goes on that affects Indian country and our lands. Next slide. So through that entails training, outreach, awareness, and advocacy. So providing training to our school district staff, which is the Port Angeles School District, to educate them on our work. The administration for Native Americans has been a huge supporter of our language revitalization efforts. So what a coincidence to come here today and supporting ANA and doing this work together in the name of Native language revitalization, talking to members of Congress, addressing tribal leaders, state leaders, and federal leaders, bringing awareness such as the ICW, the Indian Child Welfare Act, that is currently in danger. Our tribal sovereignty is under attack by the United States Supreme Court, and it's time is now to really educate our partners that we're still here and we're going to be here forever. And so through these things, it's important to let them know that we're still here, because oftentimes we're still here in the 21st century, still saying that we're still here, and people often wondering are Native people still here? So behind all of this work is what has to take place and what I remain committed in doing in the name of Native youth and Native people. So that's just a little bit of work. I didn't have, flyers or anything like Madam President Scipio had, because a lot of times we just end up just going to do the work. But it's just an absolute honor to do this work for our people and for our Native youth, because that's what it's about. It's our Native youth, because they're not only the future leaders, they are the leaders right now. And so that's always important for us to empower them and to provide those tools for them to move forward in their lives. So that's concludes my part of because of unity and the work that I do for Indian country. Thank you, Hotningson.
Thank you, Jonathan. So next, we just wanted to share our upcoming conferences in 2023. If you are interested in attending, to check it out, to see what Unity is all about. Our mid-year conference will be in February in Tempe, Arizona. And then our national conference will be in June and July in Washington, D.C. Yes, and all this information can be found on unityinc.org. And here it is. So this kind of concludes our part of the presentation. And if we have time, we can take questions or have a dialogue or something about something. This is our contact information. So our Unity emails, our personal emails, and then the Unity website. So yeah, thank you.
Also, I just want to also say, Hotningson, thank you for the invite to provide our insight and our experiences to ANA and to all the participants today. So Hotningson, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan and Shinoa. Very impressive leaders you are, even at your young age. So I appreciate your sharing of experiences. And for the participants, we apologize that the chat option was disabled. But there's one question and a comment. When Shinoa, when you were talking about the work and advocacy, was the word arbitration that you were thinking of?
No.
Okay.
I thought it was, but then I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Okay.
Adjudication.
Okay, adjudication.
There's the word. I knew it would come.
Cool. And there was a question from Carmela from ANA to Jonathan. Do you know which ANA grant helped to support your project?
A good question. And we've had since 1996, we've had numerous ANA grants that have supported our language revitalization efforts. Our language revitalization efforts began in 1992 when our language program was established. And so since then, we've had over 10 ANA grants that have supported our efforts. So to name which one would be impossible because we've received so many grants that have really helped our efforts. So thank you.
Thank you. You can also, there was a question and answer option, so you can use that as well. I don't know if participants are able to unmute themselves. Jesse, I'm not sure. I apologize. We have a lot of things happening. Our center is also doing a PPD training, the project planning and development, so kind of stretched thin. In the chat, we also put the evaluation for this session, and if you have specific comments and feedback to ANA on this webinar or any other projects you're working on, or if you have questions, we put the email address anacomments@acf.hhs.gov that you can submit your feedback. And please do give feedback because they are read and valued. Maria Boyd also added that currently Lower Elwha is currently funded under ARP, the American Rescue Plan emergency funding.
Yes, that is true. And I thank you for that reminder because we have all these things going on and it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. And it's like, okay, so we are got funded under that Native American Languages Emergency Fund from ARPA passed by Congress. And so under that, we have a mentor teacher and a successor teacher because we had changes in our district as it relates to our language and history classes being provided at the high school. So that grant has been tremendous as it relates to creating curriculum, assessments, and mentoring our new teacher in the Port Angeles School District.
I do have one question for those that are wanting to engage youth in their programs. What is one tip or a couple of tips that you can provide that can really engage them fully in the beginning and also during the process of their project?
Yeah, I would say just to go to them directly, whether that's like through a youth council, through a school group, through like a religious group, like go to them, tell them, about the project and maybe the ways that they can be involved and like what they can contribute. And then, if they're willing to do it, then let them do it, like let them have a part to play because they are more than capable. A lot of times in Western society, kids are told, to like not talk, to not walk, to not dance, to not, do whatever, like just to sit there and be still. But there's so much creativity, there's so much and some people might call it nonsense, but it's like if you actually listen to kids, if you actually listen to youth, like they're trying to tell you something. They're trying, in the best way that they know how. They don't know these big words like adjudication and arbitration and all that. Like they're trying to communicate. Just listen to them, And like I said, it's about building their capacity too. So like let them know what they can do. And then once they do it, you hype them up, you tell them, oh my God, good job. Like, can you do it again? Let's do it again, or let's do something else, It's all about building their confidence in themselves. So that way they're so that they can show others like, it's not that hard if you do it this way, if you do it that way, if you ask for help, like, yeah, I'd say just like build them up, just hype them up. And yeah, like I said, show them what they can do. Because they can do it. They know they can do it. It's just if they do it, then they're like, oh my God, like I can actually do it.
Just to build on President Scipio's comments, oftentimes our adults that are doing the work are often stuck in their ways and oftentimes don't see what can be done. And so Native youth bring a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh brain, and a fresh perspective to the table. You hear a lot of these things that matter, but the Native youth voice matters. And in order to really to create those next generation of leaders, we have to engage them in the work. If we're going to just shut them out, you're not going to see any commitment. You're not going to see any drive. And you're not going to see any efforts from Native youth. But when you bring them in, you go to where they're at. That's the most important thing is you go to where they're at. If you're going to just put something out on email or something like that, kids don't read emails. So you have to go to where they're at. You have to engage them and say, hey, this is what's going on, because that's where it's going to click. When you're going to where they're at, you go to their school, you go to their home. You might not want to go to their home, but you go to where they're at and say, hey, this is what's going on. And I think you can be capable of doing these things. You have to empower them. You have to inspire them, and you have to engage them. Empower, inspire, and engage. That's critically important to really bring in the Native youth in.
Thank you both. We're a little over the hour. There was one last comment from Mia Strickland from A&A. Since the chat is disabled, she just wanted to thank both of you who are so impressive. A&A had a Native Youth Initiative for Leadership Empowerment Development, which is iLead, and was able to fund 20 plus projects over a 5-year project to support Native youth development. So I think that's something that we can hopefully revisit and create more opportunities. So again, Guyana, thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts with us. We really appreciate it. And don't forget to give feedback through the evaluations or email to ANA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will close.